Welcome everyone to this live episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio. I'm Tim Grady. I'm here with Lew Weiss, who's the founder of Manufacturing Talk Radio. He's also the president of All Metals and Forge Group. If you're looking for open die forgings and seamless rolled rings, check out steelforge.com. Joining us is Tim Fiore, who is the committee chair for the Manufacturing Report on Business that we do every month with the Institute for Supply Management. You can find it at ismworld.org. Tim, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, I just want to start off by saying I owe you the $5 bet that we had last month, because I said that the number was going to be under 50 and you were just over 50. So I owe you $5.
We just made it.
I'd rather owe it to you than cheat you out of it.
I don't think it's going to be life-changing.
Well, we'll add it to your salary check.
Oh, that's good. I get $5.
Well,
So quite a report. That's a good lead-in. I mean, essentially, we're 50.2, 50.9 in the month of September. Pretty much the same.
Right.
And if you look at July and August, we were 52.5, 52.9, pretty much the same. So we seem to be taking these steps, we're lightly expanding, 50.2, lightly expanding. It's within the error band probably, but we're not contracting, and we're not contracting seriously. And I really don't see us contracting. But as the usual story is, the headline number is one thing, the details are another. And this is another indication towards that step towards normality that we've been looking for. And we're no longer in a demand-driven, supply-constrained manufacturing economic expansion. I mentioned it last month, and I feel even stronger about that this month. We are continuing to see, feed off the gas pedal on hiring. We are continuing to see quits rates at elevated levels. We're continuing to see companies having difficulty in hiring if they're hiring. But for every 3 companies that responded, one of them is trying to manage their headcount lower. So, and that's the same thing we saw in September. So we're on a trajectory here. The big thing is supplier deliveries. It's been a demand-driven, supplier-constrained economy. The supply side has pretty much caught up. Now there's different industry sectors have different issues. But at the manufacturing economic level, the supply side has caught up. For the last 70 some odd months, they've been holding us back. The last 4 or 5 months, they've been delivering a little bit better, but they're still struggling, delivering quote slower, but at slower rates. This time it actually got faster. So if you want a product, that last month, if you want a product on a Wednesday, they were shipping it to you on a Thursday. The month before that, if you want it on a Wednesday, they were shipping it to you on Friday. This month, if you want it on a Wednesday, they're shipping it to you on Tuesday. That's all good stuff. So it kind of means that the suppliers have got control over their future, and supported by the fact that prices are now contracting too. We've seen price growth ease. We're now seeing pricing drop. Now that may be short-lived with what's going on in Europe with the energy markets. We had 80% of our respondents say that they were paying the same or lower prices this month. Last month it was 68%. The month before that, 67%. The month before that, 35%. So clearly an indication that material input costs is easing, and we're now getting in a better buyer-seller relationship as it comes to buying. So a lot of changes this month, for the positive. I think the biggest concern really is on the demand side. So let me pick that apart. I put this thing together between demand, inputs, and outputs. And on the input side, it's supplier deliveries, it's raw material inventory, it's imports. On the demand side, it's new orders, new export orders, customer inventory, and backlog. On the output side, it's production and employment. So let's talk about the demand side. New orders contracted again this month, but not at the same rate that they did in the month of September. Okay, we'll see what November brings. They're still contracting. We still have long order streams out there between buyers and sellers. We still have long lead times out there that are stubbornly not really budging much. But something tells me, especially in the report, getting the respondents to really provide really high quality lead time information is difficult. But just from what I'm gathering through comments, lead times are coming down, not to where we want them to be. So customer inventories were flat month to month, 43, I think it is 41.6. So they're still too low. They're not way too low. And they're closer to just right than I'd like to see it. But we didn't make progress towards just right, because if our customers have more of our inventory, they're unlikely to buy more of what I want to sell. So we're kind of flat there, which is okay. The new export order side was a bit of a disappointment. It's going to continue to be a disappointment. It's Europe, China. Europe, the worst is yet to come. China, we've had slow growth out of China. This is us selling to China. And the difficulty we have now in semiconductor equipment and selling semiconductors, that's a definite headwind. And the shutdown policies in China have been a headwind. So I'm not looking for much help there in the new export order. So the big thing around the demand side is that the backlog contracted. I know, Lou, how much you love backlog.
I love backlog.
Love backlog because you can invest, you can go ahead and invest, and you can sleep at night with backlog. So we're now finally in a mode where backlog is contracting, and it's not a surprise. We've slowed down the new order rates. Every month we continue to produce. If we're producing more than new orders are coming in, the backlog is going to go away, and that's kind of where we're at. So we're now I think we're looking for the demand to come back. Whereas we had so much demand, we didn't know what to do with it all. The supply chain tried to respond. We're now in a situation where, okay, what does the demand look like in Q1, Q2 of 2023? That was the question last month. It's still the question this month.
One of the things that we've made note of at All Metals and Forge Group is that, and we did a survey of about 15 major industrial forge facilities, that their deliveries have gone way out. And the reason why they've gone way out, of course, is because the steel mills' deliveries have gone way out. So if you happen to have the capability and capacity to have shorter lead times, like our company does, your backlog goes up. And that's where we're at.
Good.
So it's interesting to see that based on demand, the forging industry, which represents a significant portion of fabricated metals and aircraft and transportation, that the deliveries have still moved out and their prices have gone up.
Yeah. Now would be a good time to stock up on raw material inventory, I think.
Right.
You got steel down to 740. Is it going to get much less than that? Will it get back to 640? I know they keep taking capacity out. The mills are taking it out. So they're trying to keep that price from getting much below 700. You saw the Cleveland Cliffs and Nucor and all that report earnings, disappointing. So, but this is the feast and famine world and long lead time, high capital intensive, big batch manufacturing. You make money hand over fist, and then you lose a ton of money too. So highly cyclical. It's a great example of manufacturing. We're highly cyclical. We go up, we go down. We've been held back this time because of supplier constraints, and in some of the longer lead time areas, we think that's going to help continue the expansion. Transportation equipment is a good example. But the big guys who do batch processing, the steel guys, aluminum guys, boy, they live and they die. They make a ton of money at one point. It's like miners. Make a ton of money for a year and a half, and then they lose a ton of money for a year. It's just the way it is. And it's not called price gouging. I think that's this whole thing about price gouging. Like, give me a break. So these guys over the term, these guys have to make money.
So you before the show, you brought up a term I haven't been privy to, and that's called dynamic pricing. So I'm sure there's not a lot of people that really know that term well. So can you give that a little explanation before we move on?
Yeah, it means you time your pricing based on when demand is the strongest and when it's the weakest. So you try to spur more demand in weak time periods. So you would drop your prices in periods of time when you don't have the demand. You're trying to energize demand, assuming it's elastic. And then when you have a lot of demand, you try to maximize your price for the unit of the product. So when you get people lined up out the door, you try to get the most for your product. And then when nobody's outside the door, you drop the price to get them to come in. And with computer technology the way it is these days, and you're trying to operate in dynamic regions and across the world or across a region or even across a city. Yeah, you see that. I mean, I think Uber practices that when it comes to it. It's like the Uber thing. I mean, if you're out clubbing, which I don't do, but if you're out clubbing 1, 2 in the morning, then next thing you know, your Uber fare is 3 times what it was to get there. So that's because everybody wants a cab to get home. It's dynamic pricing, and their technology is giving them the ability to do that.
And here I thought you were a clubbing guy.
Not anymore.
What are you
That's
gonna
long
do?
since
What
passed.
are you gonna do with your yellow jacket when we get you one?
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to go into some place where there's lots of people so they can see us.
Right, right.
Tim, what sectors are struggling? Because I know the manufacturing report on business talks about the various sectors in the manufacturing industry. There are a couple that are not doing as well as others.
Yeah, so we actually triangulate this a couple of different directions. Everybody's familiar with the activity that we report on: new orders, production, inventory, employment, but all that information comes from industry sectors that we're able to collect and see what the industry sector actually looks like based on the activity. So as many of your listeners know, I watched the top 6. Actually, I watched the top 7, but the top 6, I watched the 7 because the 6 and 7 keep swapping places, and they make up 70% of manufacturing GDP. So we have 18 industry sectors, 6 of them, 1/3, make up 70%. So I watch them closely, and I watch for their trends. And 4 months ago, the chemical sector, number 2 industry sector, 14% of manufacturing GDP, went into contraction. It's still in contraction. It's not contracting as bad in the month of October compared to September, but it's still contracting. Think of 46 level. I think in September was at 43. Interesting thing about chemicals is it goes everywhere. It goes, there's no real chemical purchase direct except for maybe a pill, because farmers in there too, but everything has to be put into something else. So it kind of aggregates all the demand from all the other 17 industry sectors. And if it's aggregating all that demand from all the 17 industry sectors, it's seeing the impact of everything kind of first. So this happened about 5 months ago, I think it was. So, okay, fine. Things are slowing down. New order rates are going to slow down with them. We had talked about some of that before. Inventories grew a little bit. Production output slowed down. Some of that's driven by energy markets too, because of the feedstocks in the U.S. are natural gas and not so much oil. This month, though, computer electronics, our number 1 industry sector, went into contraction too, and it's contracting at a rate of think 49. All right, so we're at that bubble point, 49, 50, 51. What's the real difference? The point is it's actually contracting, and it lost a couple of points in the month. So, all right, what's happening there? I mean, production was good. Supplier deliveries, 35. So all of a sudden now, all in the subcomponents in electronics, the actives, the passives, the printed circuit boards, the enclosures, all that other connectors, now all of a sudden they're delivering a lot faster. So boom, here it comes. Inventory levels at 62. Manufacturing inventory 62. Good thing customer inventories at 40, too low. Backlog at 41. So what you've probably seen happening there is, we all know that in electronics there was a ton of over ordering. That's the only way you get attention at the seller level, and now that's kind of working its way out. So yeah, that one contracted. So we got chemicals, we got computers, we have machinery. I believe it's machinery. What's contracting to? No, let's see. Yeah, let's see. Food and beverage contracted too. Down 3 points at 49. So these are weak contractions. New order levels of food and beverage 41. That's a bit alarming, but we'll see. We have a strong panel in food and beverage. So let's see what we're now in the holiday season. We don't do seasonality based on industries. We do it based on the sum of all of it, and the 12 months. So food and beverage should come back, I would think. We stopped the picnicking in October, and now we're talking about big feasts in November. So let's see what happens. The growth area. Let me give you the good growth one. I think is machinery, and machinery is long lead time. Where people make investment, and a lot of it is durable goods. So you don't just pull the cord on that. And I think our order rates there are still pretty good. Yeah, flat, flat. So if I see the machinery order rate drop to low 40s, that means people are starting to pull back on investment, given the environment that we have here about, the sky is falling. But probably the best one here is transportation. And it's trucks, it's cars, it's airplanes primarily. Airplanes are still struggling to get to the right rate. There's plenty of demand there. It's not going away. Cars, we're still only building 13.5 million a year. We should be building 17.5 just to keep up with replacement. And we've had 2 years of a real drought and inventory. So transportation, the cars are going to continue to grow through 23, probably well into 24. And the same thing's happening with trucks. The lead times are not coming down. Order books are full for pretty much 23. So that's going to flow in. So transportation is going to be a good guy, like I talked about last month, in terms of holding the PMI up. For the near term, chemicals is probably going to be bringing us down. Maybe with the embargo that's going to hit in Europe in December, it's going to help our industry to export. Europe for feedstocks uses naphtha and oil, and they're going to embargo that. They're only going to be able to buy stuff that's on ships, not through pipeline, and that'll probably drive the price up, which will drive demand into the U.S. for export. So computers, we'll see. I think we've got this spiky thing, over ordering, got to work it off, and then get back into some kind of pure demand. Food and beverage, I think will come back just based on it. It's a staple.
The new machine tool index number hasn't come out yet, but just reflecting back from last month, it was higher, and which is usually a good indicator for machinery building and tooling and so on for at least 3 to 6 months. So that sector looks like, starting with the beginning of 2023, looks like that's going to be fairly strong.
Yeah, good. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I think, once we actually enter contraction, which I think we will, I'm just not exactly sure. I'll take the bet again with you, Lou, that we're going to stay above 50.
No
Double
bet.
or nothing.
No bet. Unless you want to give me odds. Because I think it's probably going to be above 50 also. But if you want to give me odds, I'll take the shot. I didn't win the Powerball last night.
You did not, unfortunately. Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah.
$1 billion. I mean, amazing.
There's a case where dynamic pricing would really work.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm surprised they put that in place. Yeah, there's probably some law against that. But so, we're kind of thinking that, you'll see maybe a general economic slowdown, i.e. recession, 6 or 9 months after we go into a contraction. So, and yield curve has been inverted since May, I think it is. And they've said that, when the yield curve inverts, it usually takes 9 months to a year to see a recession. But in any event, we're talking recession like it's a bad thing. We can have a mild recession, and all the indications right now is that that's what we'll see. The people who know this stuff told me a long time ago. There's 3 things that you kind of watch for. The first one is Fed hiking interest rates, and if they're very convinced and they don't see the right signs of seeing wage inflation come down, they're going to put us in a recession. But it doesn't mean it's going to be a bad recession. The second one is that economic cycles just kind of run out of steam, and do we have that now, or is the Fed kind of putting some resistance on the train track? Maybe a little bit of both. The third one, and I think the one that is not going to happen, is there's no catastrophic event. So we don't have banks melting down, people borrowing money that shouldn't be, and we don't have a global virus that threatens to kill us all. So, all right, so we have a slowdown in economic activity. So let's talk about what probably the people who really watch this stuff are looking for. They're looking for slowdown in hiring. They're looking for wages to stabilize. The biggest fear there is wage growth, because then it spirals. Once you get wage growth, you're expected to always have wage growth, and that then drives up the cost of goods, and on we go in this gerbil wheel that never ends. So, my opinion has always been that they're probably not going to think that they really stop wage growth until they see significant amount of layoffs. And I think the JOLTS report came out this morning. Did I hear that, or is it coming out this week or something?
It's coming out.
It's coming out. Last month, we lost 1 million jobs. Very consistent with what we reported here on the PMI. And that is that we were running at a 6 to 8 to 1 hire to force manage ratio. And in the month of September, we went to 2 to 1. In the month of October, we're at 2 to 1 again, too, for all intents and purposes. So what that means is that, 4 or 5 months ago, for every 7 companies, we had 6 hiring. And 1 was trying to manage their headcount through freezes and attrition, no layoff talk. Month of September, for every 3 companies, we got 2 hiring. And 1 that's trying to manage their headcount through freezes and attrition, natural attrition, meaning if I got 3 people quit on me, I'm only going to replace 2. That's continuing in October. It showed up in September. And what it really says is that they're not concerned about next month's demand. They weren't concerned about October's demand. You saw our production number actually come up, which is good. They're not really concerned about December demand either. They're concerned about next year. They're concerned about, what does all this mean moderate to longer term? In the meantime, companies, on a pretty strong ratio, 35% of the respondents providing comments indicating that they're watching their headcount now. Whereas before it was, please, please, please come to work for me. I'll will you in. I'll let you come to work in your bed. You can come to work in your sweatpants and your pajamas. I don't care. That's all changed. That's changing. It's changing. Quits rate was still fairly high. I mean, I think in September we saw a quits rate come down a little bit. We're about that same level. The difficulty in hiring is still getting a little bit better. So these are slow movements, but there was no real sign of any kind of layoffs. So we'll see. And I think the Fed is looking for that. That would be my guess. They're looking for significant layoffs, which really says, all right, we've got the labor pool kind of controlled.
Tim, I'm just curious, in about a month and a half, you'll join us again in mid-December for your semi-annual forecast. I'm assuming that's well underway and you're bringing in the data, and we look forward to that update.
Yeah, we're collecting it now. It's going to be there's a lot of interest in this. Not only from the cap, we track a bunch of stuff, but the notables are, what's the CapEx investment for this year? But more importantly, what are we planning on next year? What do we think wages will be next year? What do we think they were this year? The prices number is also really important. What do we think? We had predicted in May, we predicted in December, we would see an 8.4% price increase December to December 22. And in May, we said, no, it's going to be 11.1%. And then by the middle of the year, it would be 11.4. So it kind of feels like that's where we're at. Not sure 11 is the right number. It might be 12, might be 10. But we really think the second half of the year, we've kind of maxed out, we've capped out. And now with prices coming down on the index, it kind of supports that fact. So a lot of interest here in what's going to be for the forecast for price increases for next year. It could be low single digits. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And then we have a business outlook, we have a profitability, we have a revenue projection for 2023, all really good stuff. So stay tuned. That'll be a December release, I think, right?
And then there's always dynamic pricing. We're going to have to put that into our process here at AMFG, dynamic pricing.
Dynamic pricing.
I like that.
Well, I just want to remind all of our viewers and listeners, if you're listening to this show, and by the way, thousands are, and that number is accelerating, also listen to the services index report that Anthony Nieves does with us each month. That's coming up for us in a couple of days. So if you're watching this after the 4th or 5th of the month, tune back into that one. A lot of great information there. Be sure to visit ismworld.org. and also steelforge.com while you're surfing the web. And you, as always, can find us at jacketmediaco.com, the Manufacturing Talk Radio Show. Thanks, Tim, for being with us.
Yeah, good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and let's have another good report next month.
You bet. No reason why not. 48 to 52.
That's not bad. We'll take it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.